Fossilize by me, TalesofTim. Because of a mistake with my drawing tablet, I was not able to add art to this, but I will be adding art as soon as my new one arrives. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 1: Death. Long ago, before you were born, before the first creature that could be called human was born, an Edmontosaurus regalis died. The duck-billed dinosaur slowly slipped below the lake's surface, locking out light, air, hope. Over time, its soft, caring flesh wore away, and its bones were covered by layers of dirt. Something profound happens when trapped in that suffocating darkness, crushed by the weight of the world. Over time, bones dissolve away and are replaced with minerals. The ground shifts, separating the bones, crushing most into dust. In the end, when that Edmontosaurus regalis is dug up years later, it's incomplete. The crucible of the earth tore the body apart. All that's left is stone, a mere shadow, making it impossible to understand how spectacular it once was. Fossilization. He tried to lean back, but his bloodied shirt stuck to the wall behind him. So he leaned forward instead, and when he did, he could see into the bathroom nearby. He could see her face, her limp hand, her parted lips, her lifeless eyes. In a flash, he's on top of her again. Her eyes are smiling, and flush stretches from her cheeks to her cleavage as they move together. In that moment, they're happy. Then another flash, and he's stabbing her. She's trying to scream through the blood, but it turns into foamy bubbles before escaping. Every time the knife entered flesh, he felt it scrape along bone, but he kept stabbing. He kept slamming that knife down until her chest and stomach were ribbons of skin, organ, and ichor. He broke from his memories to find her gray eyes looking back. He leaned back and felt the slick warmth of his shirt press into his back against the wall. They were happy once. There was a time when he loved her, and she may have loved him. They met one night in the bitter cold, him his hands in his pockets and his eyes in the stars, her hands filled with books and her eyes filled with life. She would tell him that he was always somewhere else. She'd say that she would spend the rest of her life trying to find a way to bring him back to reality. Andrea was the most beautiful person he'd ever seen. She had brown hair, long when she wasn't wearing it in a bun. She wasn't Hollywood pretty. To Hollywood, she'd be overweight, but to him, she was dazzling. She liked to wear Christmas sweaters, even when it wasn't Christmas, and he only talked her into trick-or-treating once. Sickened by the feel of his back against the wall, he leaned forward again. The shirt slapped into his back with a wet thwack, and he could see her again. The surprise, horror, and anger that had been in her face as he attacked was gone now, replaced with an emptiness that was somehow worse. It screamed that she wasn't there anymore. It screamed right into his brain, forcing out all thought, except the hope that this was all a terrible dream. Unable to handle the sight anymore, he leaned back against the wall. He noted with bittersweet relief that the blood on his back wasn't as warm as it had been. Was this her fault? She was the one who left him. She was the one who he caught. Was it his fault? Had he somehow neglected her? Had she been suffering without his knowledge all these years? He was the one that attacked her, and only after she smiled, happy to see him. There was a loud knock on the door. Should he have killed her lover instead? The thought of her body wrapped around another man still made his breath catch, and his fists clench, even as her body lay lifeless less than 5 feet away. She still held sway over his heart. A bond, unbroken by death. A bond that meant nothing to anyone but himself. There was love. Once. Right? Once again he leaned forward, and his gaze fell on her face. It seemed drawn to her, as if the universe was scolding him for what he'd done. The universe's scolding was nothing to the memories of her that tore into his mind. It was like red-hot spikes, stabbed in his head over and over. The knock was louder this time. "Hello? Is anyone there?" He tried to respond, but the effort failed, and instead he began shaking. "Some of your neighbors said they heard screams. Is everything okay?" The voice was gruff, filled with authority. No, yes. His eyes fell on the knife that lay in a pile of blood at his feet. Were they ever okay? Or had the years together been a mirage, seen through colored glass? His mind collapsed into memory. She had gotten hungry for some fast food, a rare occurrence, and so they both left with their books open on her desk. By the time they arrived to the restaurant, it had started to downpour. They walked back in the rain, too caught up in each other to care. When they arrived at her dorm, they realized they'd left the window above the desk open. The rain ruined their books. They laughed at their own misfortune, until the desk became a bed for their lust. They slept together, covered in the cooling rain, until the morning came again. He opened his mouth in silent scream as the tears finally came. The doors opened with a loud crack, and soon the room was filled with people, unable to speak, to process. They took him from the home, her home. As he sat in the squad car, he felt something in him fade. He felt the world get a bit darker. She wasn't in it. The stars had all faded into nothing. She had said once that she would bring him back to reality. As he sat in the courtroom, feeling the hateful stares of her family and hearing the drone of the jury, it came to him. She had succeeded. He was here. He felt the chair beneath him and smelled the judge's aftershave. He could hear the angry whispers behind him. She had made it unsafe in his own head. He had fallen from the stars into a vast lake of cold reality. The judge leaned back. "Thank you, jury, for your service today. I do not feel that this needs to be drawn out anymore, so I will give my sentencing now. For the murder of Andrea Pebble, I sentence you, Anthony Keel, to 30 years on pilgrimage. Do you understand what that means, sir?" The entire courtroom became quiet as the sentencing sunk in. Behind him, Anthony could hear the happy whispers. His lawyer, next to him, was rubbing his temples. Anthony didn't hate him. The lawyer had fought hard, even when Anthony wanted to give up. Anthony looked up to the judge. "Yes, Your Honor. I do." "Well," the judge leaned back, "then you will be escorted by armed security to the jail. There you may make one phone call, after which you will be put on a helicopter and flown to pilgrimage. You will be given provisions for 3 days. Then you must find your own food and water. Should you survive your entire sentence, you will be returned home, your criminal past erased." The gavel slammed. That is all. Court is adjourned. No one survived on pilgrimage. He had fallen into the waters of reality, the waters of what he'd done, and now he could feel himself sinking. Sinking until his body hit the soft mud at the bottom of the lake. A lake vast, dark, lightless. A lake like the one an Edmontosaurus regalis slipped into many years ago. A lake that he knew he'd never get out of, because something was different about him. Something inside of him had died. He called his mother with his last phone call. She didn't pick up. No one survived on pilgrimage. Fossilization